Good evening and welcome to this regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth. Our meeting date is Monday, April 8th, 2024, Eclipse Day. I'm Mayor Todd Kasenberg and I'll call this meeting to order. I ask the clerk to note our starting time for the minutes as 7:01 p.m. A warm welcome is extended to councillors, staff, delegations, and observers who may participate in this meeting, regardless of being physically in attendance in the council chamber in Listowel or being connected through web technologies. We begin tonight's meeting with the playing of O Canada. Those in chambers as able are invited to stand. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe peoples. We wish to recognize the long history of Indigenous peoples in Canada and show our respect for them today. We recognize their stewardship of the land. May we all live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship. Tonight's meeting is being streamed live on the Municipality of North Perth YouTube channel and will be available there after this meeting as an archived video. To those viewing this meeting via the YouTube channel, a warm welcome to you. To those present in the gallery today by attending a public meeting of the council, you are consenting to your image, voice, and comments being recorded. Anyone who is invited to speak will be recorded, and their voice, image, and comments will form part of the live stream. The chair and/or the clerk have the discretion and authority at any time to direct the termination or interruption of live streaming. Such direction will only be given in exceptional circumstances when deemed relevant. Circumstances may include instances where the content of debate is considered misleading, defamatory, or potentially inappropriate to be published. Attendees are advised that they may be subject to legal action if their actions result in inappropriate and/or unacceptable behavior and/or comments. Thank you. At this time, I invite your decorum over the course of the coming meeting. Let's move to item 5 of our agenda pertaining to pecuniary interest. For the benefit of those unfamiliar with our council practices, provincial legislation requires councillors with a potential pecuniary or financial interest in any item at the council table to declare this interest and to remove her or himself from discussions and voting on the item. In accordance with recommended protocol at this time, I invite all councillors with a perceived pecuniary interest, including those who have declared already in writing, to verbally advise the chair in public session and to submit documentation to this effect in writing to the clerk. Councillors are further reminded that should potential conflict arise during the meeting, they may so declare and act at any point in the meeting. Colleagues, at this time, do any of you wish to make a declaration to that end? Councillor Andreessen, let me just get the camera right here, right? Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor Kasenberg and Council and members of the public and our staff. I need to declare potential pecuniary interest on item 11.4 from correspondence through the Listowel Agricultural Society regarding the Taste of the World event. My husband is a director with the organization, and I'm also an active volunteer of this organization. As a result, I'll have to withdraw from the confirmatory bylaw, which is 17.1. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Anyone else with a declaration at this time? All right, I'm not seeing any. My role as chair prompts me to manage the flow of proceedings tonight and largely in accord with our agenda. We usually do have some participating remotely by web conference. Should they wish to speak, they may draw the attention of the clerk to this using the conference technology's text chat function. If technical difficulties arise for remote participants, we have Simon with us tonight, and we can dispatch him to support. Let us now focus on the people's business. Part of that focus is achieved when those in the chamber silence and put away their phones. Regarding item 6 of our agenda, I have a request from the clerk to adjust the agenda to address an urgent matter, and we'll ask her to explain. Clerk Carter, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. Amendment to the agenda to add item 9.3.3, Binning Street West parking allowance.
Thank you, Clerk Carter. So let's turn to a resolution for our consideration for the approval of tonight's agenda as amended. It looks like this, that the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved as amended to add item 9.3.3, Binning Street West parking allowance. Can I call for mover? Councillor Blazek, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. We are now, therefore, at item 7 on our agenda, the so-called consent agenda. Consent items are placed on our agenda because they are believed to be non-contentious, yet they may warrant Council's recognition and or action. Grouping them expedites our business. However, any councillor wishing to extract an item from the consent agenda for discussion, debate, or individual action may do so. There are 13 items on our consent agenda tonight, including the minutes of our last regular council meeting. Colleagues, anything to extract here or any corrections that you'd like seen made to the minutes? Councillor Rothwell.
Good evening, Mayor Todd, members of council, staff, and public. I'd like to speak to item 7.12, Blue Water Recycling Association Board of Directors meeting highlights, please.
Thank you, Councillor Rothwell. Anyone else? Councillor Blazek is sort of gingerly suggesting that she does. Councillor Blazek, let me get your microphone.
7.1, it's a very minor typo, but kind of important.
Okay. Let's still in order here. Councillor Rothwell, as is our custom, when something's pulled, you have the floor, if you will.
Thank you very much, Mayor Todd, and as your representative on the Blue Water Recycling Association, I want to underscore the fact that beginning April 1st, the Blue Water Recycling Association continues to pick up both recyclables as well as garbage within North Perth, but that producer responsibility is now in place here in North Perth and throughout our Blue Water Recycling area. And so it will be the producers that are paying for the recycling as opposed to the Blue Box program, where municipalities were involved. This has been a long process. There's been many a long road and discussion about this. And I think for our residents in North Perth, I want to assure residents in this council that this will be a seamless service. Our Mark Hackett will be discussing this further, I'm sure, but there'll be no difference continuing on for both recyclables as well as garbage collection. It'll be the same Blue Water Recycling vehicle that's picking up both. So I just want to underscore that this has now been in place now since April 1st, and we look forward to that transition over this next period of time. Thank you.
Great, thank you. If I can, let me ask CEO Snell, are we expecting a report on the implications of that shift to this council, especially with regards to the financial impacts?
I believe as part of the budget, Mark Hackett spoke to this, and certainly we can bring back a report once we have all the facts known, because I think there's still a little bit that needs to come out, but certainly I can address that with Mark, and we can bring back a report as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. We should leave that at staff discretion, I think, if that's all right. All right, let's turn to Councillor Blazek, please.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. In item 7.1, our agenda from our last council meeting, under item 10, the council report requests, we've spelt Perth County incorrectly, and I know that a typo is very minor, but, we should spell Perth County correctly. Please.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Blazek. I think the clerk's table looks like they're nodding their heads, so we will see that there's an adjustment made to the minutes before they're endorsed. Thank you. Anyone else with anything on the consent agenda? Doesn't seem like there's a necessary resolution from the items that were pulled at this point. So let's consider the resolution that consent items 7.1 to 7.13 be received for information and the minutes of the March 18th, 2024 regular council meeting be adopted with a spelling change. Moved by Councillor Nordum. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. Okay, we have all 10 votes accounted for. That is carried. Thank you. All right, let's move forward then. It's proposed that we move to agenda item number 8. Our agenda indicates that we will now entertain a delegation. I'll remind the delegation that in accordance with this council's procedure bylaw, a total time of 10 minutes per delegation is permitted, and that includes both presentation time and providing an opportunity for councillors to ask questions. A delegation is to present on the topic declared on the submitted request. 4 delegation forms and deviations from the topic are not acceptable to the chair or this council. As always, we expect respect and courtesy, which inherently includes not using the names of those who have not consented to such use. As item 8.1, we are joined by Mr. Bert Johnson and Mr. John Verway, residents and ratepayers who wish to address council about the subject of the Listowel Sesquicentennial. Ooh, I knew I was going to mess that word up. Sesquicentennial. Mr. Johnson and Mr. Verway, welcome to this council meeting. The floor is yours. You can come forward to the podium.
I'm Bert Johnson, and I'll get to the microphone in a minute, but I didn't know if I could use a
He's doling out money, folks.
I'm here to promote 2025 as Listowel's sesquicentennial. I looked it up. Sesqui is 1.5. And so 150 is a century and a half. So that's why it's called a sesquicentennial. I think that we'll probably just want to be known as a centennial celebration. You had, or at least I read in the Listowel Banner that council had wondered about volunteers for centennial, and some have volunteered for it, but I read it and I thought it was a good idea. I remember the 150 years ago, and this has been on the back door of my garage for 50 years. That was the drawing of whatever it was that they were celebrating. Of course, I wasn't born yet then, but that's besides the point. A group of volunteers have had 3 meetings in a private home, and they will have a request for council because they would like to be appointed by council as a committee to plan and conduct North Perth's recognition of Listowel's 150th celebration. I will not be on the committee. I'd like to be, but I will volunteer in other ways because there will be subcommittees and volunteers and registrations and parades and all those sorts of things. But I look forward to helping in the subcommittees in some way, sort of thing. I have and the reason I'm saying this is I'm a promoter. I like to think of that anyway. And I'm not content to sit on a committee, and I don't have the expertise for that. But I have contacted the Chamber of Commerce and the BIA and Spinrite Day Care Center. I've gone to 6 schools, talked to the principals. By the way, Listowel Christian School is celebrating their 40th anniversary this September. So they may want to include something for 2025, or they may want to have that recognition and so on, and they deserve to be complimented on that milestone. In any way, I have a motion that I would hope that council would consider, and it reads, the council appoints the Sesquicentennial Committee to plan and conduct North Perth celebration of Listowel's 150th anniversary. And I'm just not sure how you go about that, but what I wanted to do was I wanted to introduce John Verway. He will probably volunteer to be the chair of the steering committee. But if it's all right, I would ask him to come because he would like to take up the rest of the 10 minutes if the bell doesn't ring too soon. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bert. Mayor Todd, members of council, staff. I'm not even going to try to say that word. I'm going to say 150th anniversary. I think that's a whole lot easier. I don't tongue twist that quite as much. One thing that Bert has done a good job of over the past 2 to 3 weeks is he has recruited, 6 or 7 of us to agree to be part of this. If you can support us on it, we think it's great for North Perth. One of the things that we did focus on in our first discussion is we do not want to see this as a listable thing. We want to see this as a celebration of North Perth celebrating listable. I think that's very important to talk about it that way and have sure that we have all the organizations in North Perth that are wanting to be part of it that are part of it. What I'd like to do at this time, though, is introduce the group of people that Bert has so far got to agree to be part of this committee. We're still looking for a few more. I think one thing that we're missing from our group of members that we have is a treasurer. We know we're going to need a treasurer if we get this going. But at this time, I'd like to just introduce some of them. Some of them are here this evening. Most of them you know. As a matter of fact, all of them you know. Pat Bearfelds is here, and Pat has agreed to be on the committee. Kate Turvitt, I'm sure we all know Kate. Miles Dadson, and all of us here will know Miles. Vince Judge, that goes no exception. We all know Vince. John Connors, Diane Fitzgerald. And we think it's a pretty good group. It's a pretty good mixed group. It's a group that's had a lot of experience through various organizations in running events, running things like Patty Fish. You got a couple of past Patty Fish chairmen on that group. So I think we know how to run a party and how to make a good party, because it's really what we want to have. We don't have any clear-cut plans yet as far as how we want this to work. I think that really is going to be something that we'll get out of the public forums. We want to run a public forum and get what do the people of North Perth, what would they want to see? Do you want dances? Do you want parades? Do you want fireworks? Do you want all these sort of things? What do you want to have And then from that, we can figure out, okay, how are we going to fund it? How are we going to afford it? How are we going to do it? But I vaguely remember the 100th anniversary. I think I attended a few events as a high school student. And I think we in North Perth can have one heck of a good party. So we look forward to your support. And we look forward to having something that we're going to remember for another 100 years. With that, any questions, anybody? Okay, well then I'll leave it with you.
All right, let me just check in with colleagues. Colleagues, any questions or comments for the delegation at this point? Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Bert, and thank you to all the volunteers. I guess my question is, why do you want to be appointed by council? Because then I don't know if you fall under our boards and committees policies and stuff like that, whether that makes it more of a hindrance, or is there another reason why you want council to appoint your committee?
I think what I have heard is that to be appointed by council, it helps us more on the sort of liability side. And that's really the major reason. Like, we're not coming here looking for funding or anything. That might be later. But, we're really looking for that more from the protection standpoint of being under the umbrella of the town.
Okay, anyone else with questions for the delegation? Councillor Richardson, let me get your microphone. There we go.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Kasenberg, I would just like to, not a question per se, but I would certainly like to thank the committee that is stepping forward for now. This is an incredibly important milestone for Listowel and for North Perth. And kudos to everyone. We've got a great, solid team. I'm looking forward to the 150th. So I think that'll be good. I just like kudos to everyone for stepping forward to put in a lot of work for this effort, and it's going to be a good time. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Well, we can thank Bert for being the one to really spearhead it and pull us all together and have a few meetings to get the group together.
Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. Thank you, John, and the committee for stepping forward. Looking forward to all the plans that you're going to be working on. I'm just wondering if you'll be trying to involve other service clubs like the Kinsman Canets, Optimist, the Egg Society, that kind of participation through those groups and their current events that they host all year long.
If you know me, and if you know the committee members, every one of us is a very strong service club member or group member or some committee. I don't think it could be a proper celebration without involving service clubs, without involving church groups, without involving Ag Society, the Legion. I mean, we want this to be a party. At least I want it to be a party. And I think to do it best is to have everybody involved. And again, not just Listowel. We want to see involvement in Wallace. We want to see involvement in Elma. We want it to be a party for all of us to celebrate what we have. I mean, it's great.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else with questions for the delegation? Comments?
Thank you very much.
All right, colleagues, typically after a delegation, it's the usual question, is there a will of council here? What would you like to do? Councillor Richardson?
Oh, thank you. And through you, I would certainly put forth the motion and agree with the motion that has been proposed by Mr. Johnson to go forward and properly endorse, if that's the proper procedure to do that this evening, that I'd be willing to do so now or at the next meeting, but
Okay.
I'd be willing for now.
All right, taking note. Anyone wishing to suggest an alternate course of action? Okay. So we have a resolution that Mr. Johnson did put forward. Let's see if I can find it here. It's right in front of me. All right. The resolution that was put forward was that council appoints the Sesquicentennial Committee to plan and conduct North Perth's celebration of Listowel's 150th anniversary. I point out that our procedure bylaw is such, or makes a statement quite clear, that when it comes to committees of council, that the deputy mayor, the mayor, and the CAO are responsible for making nominations to council through our appointments bylaw. So this is a little unusual, right? But this is the resolution that was put forward at this point in time. So if there to be a committee of council, there should be either a waiver of the appointments bylaw approach, or the appointments rest in the hands of the mayor, the deputy mayor, and the CAO to bring forward to council for ratification. Councillor Johnston.
Then let's just add a line in the bottom of that, that we waive the normal appointments bylaw under this circumstance.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay, that's the first issue. The second issue that I think we should consider is additional members, because certainly there was a call put into the public domain on behalf of the municipality, and there were names received, people who were interested in volunteering for this. I don't know how those are reasonably represented in this process, but perhaps that's a question for the proponents of the committee, that they'd like to suggest how they will involve the other people who've stepped forward and said that they'd like to be involved, especially since it would greatly represent the diversity of North Perth. I think that's important here too, right? Anyone wanting, did you want to come forward, Mr. Verwey, and address that? I think it's important. Like, to me, I would value understanding your intentions there if you want to formulate the committee.
Yeah, and I believe that Pat already has those names. And just recognize that this group that is here at council this evening, we see ourselves as the organizing committee. There's a lot more than just the organizing committee. There are going to be umpteen different subcommittees. There will be subcommittees for dance, subcommittees for parades, subcommittees for umpteen different things, and just name it. And we would really be looking at those people that have shown support or an interest in being part of those subcommittees. And this really becomes more of a steering committee or organized committee is the word that we're using, but we're really sort of directing as far as the overall plan. But definitely, I mean, if somebody shows any interest, once you raise your hand, you're in.
I mean, I'll express my concern that there are others who may wish to actually be on the steering committee and not as a subcommittee member, but be involved in the decision making. And I don't think those voices, which we've called for, should be ignored. They need to be considered. So the question is, how do they get considered, and who's involved in the considerations, right? Councillor Rothwell, let me turn to you.
Thanks. Thank you, Mayor Todd. Just a clarification. In our request, I can't recall, did we have a deadline date that members of the public were asked to respond? I can't recall it.
Maybe we'll redirect to CAO Snell to comment on what's happened here and where we stand with nominations, people who've self-nominated to serve.
So we did have a deadline date. I can't recall off the top of my head, but it has passed, and we have collected those names or people that expressed interest to join a committee. And I believe we did meet with staff did meet with Bert and John this morning, and I think after that meeting, some of those names were passed on to the committee.
And I believe I've been in touch with all of them so far. Yeah, Tyler's already been in touch with them. See what sort of interest they would have in the committee or in a subcommittee.
Okay, I guess what I'm saying, and I try to say this as respectfully as possible, is that I want this to represent a broad diversity of the committee, and those who are interested, who want to serve on the steering committee, I'd like to see them sit there. And I don't want to see processes that take them out because they're not usual contributors in any way, or they're new to our community, or whatever reasons might rule them out. I trust you appreciate my... Okay. Okay. So how do we proceed?
We have a motion.
So Councillor Richardson, you made a suggestion that we waive the usual appointment process.
Yes, I would, if we waive the normal process, I would agree to that.
Okay. And Councillor Blazek, did you want to weigh in on this?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Is there a reason that we need to waive that? That feels potentially risky, and maybe it could open a can of worms. Would it be possible for the mayor, the deputy mayor, and the CAO to go through the list of people that they currently have and sort of expedite an appointment process rather than removing our approval process altogether?
Okay. Anyone want to offer comment or rebut this? Personally, I think, and weighing in maybe a little too much, but if this is a council-appointed committee, then our usual processes need to apply here, in my personal opinion. It's about risk management, amongst other things, which is one of the reasons why the committee is approaching council in the first place. Councillor Andreessen, you had your hand up.
Through you, Mayor Kaysenberg, I also am wondering if we can, through you as the mayor, deputy mayor, and our CEO, to take a look at that list of people who has expressed an interest to make sure that they are included, and that should be probably our responsibility, given that those names were submitted through the municipality. And that would be in line with our processes. Would that be accurate? So I think we should likely work through the process, and of course with the folks who have approached us, and probably come up with a good solution.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to contribute on this one? Deputy Mayor Kellum?
Yes, sir, Mayor Kaysenberg. So we already have a motion on the floor with the waive. If we...
It's not been moved or seconded yet, so...
It has been moved, I thought? Okay, so if this motion does come to the floor, we have a mover and a seconder, and we do waive the rules in this, can we still not, if it goes through, then the three of us still sit down with the names, and we go through, or is that not the sense?
Let's turn to CAO Snell for some wisdom here, if you don't mind.
I'm not sure I understand the question specifically. So, I mean, typical format as we, under a council-appointed committee, is we would have the names of people who would like to serve, and we would, as the mayor said, the mayor and deputy mayor would, and myself would sit down and just do an environmental scan on those potential committee members, and then we would bring it forward to council by bylaw. And if the committee wants to be a committee of council, it'll have to be approved by bylaw at this or a future council meeting. For them to receive protection under our insurance, they have to be named by bylaw. So that will have to come forward at a future meeting. How we get to the members on that committee, to me, that's up to council to provide. It's your policy, but I certainly explained the processes, how it traditionally is done in North Perth.
Usually, council committees, of course, also come with terms of reference, and often there's an appointment of at least one councillor to the committee. There's an implication, of course, for a committee of council that it will have some kind of secretarial or support services from staff. So there's a number of considerations that are tied up in the notion that this become a committee of council. I appreciate the fact that we have 7 or 8 who've stepped forward and said we want to do this and have started working on it. But I think we need to take our duties seriously and consider what the implications are for risk management and consistency with our policies and practices. Anyone I mean, one of the things we could do is direct this to staff to come back with a report on how to proceed. What's interesting, of course, is that this council made an earlier decision which wasn't like this. It was, we would serve only as sort of the nucleators of the committee, and we'd put out an ad and we'd bring them together for their first meeting, and then they could take off and do their own thing. And that's still certainly an option, but that's not the option that this group has brought forward. Anyone feeling anything here? Councillor Rothwell?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I think this is an exciting opportunity for us as North Perth to celebrate together, and I don't think we can lose sight of that. So whether it's we follow our procedure and hopefully this could a matter could come back with a list of considerations of individuals to form the steering committee, and that would be based on my understanding April 15th. Hopefully we could have a turnaround, something similar like that. But my other issue of concern is that when we talk about the not only the steering committee but all the other subcommittees that are required to put an event like this on, I think they probably deserve the same level of protection if the municipality wants to do that, because it is a community celebration, that they are all protected in terms of our ability to have insurance. So the question still then remains, then does council have to appoint all those members of the subcommittee? So based on what I know from, we didn't necessarily see this in the case of Moncton, but we have seen in other municipalities where there's all kinds of different subcommittees, and if we are serious about giving our support and the ability to protect them under the municipality's liability insurance and that sort of thing, then I think it behooves us to undertake that. And if we do need to have a report come forward, as I say, if we can have a turnaround by the 15th, this is a celebration next year. I know time is of the essence, but we have time on our side, given the diligence of those individuals that have come forward, both here this evening as well as those that have put their names in through to our call for requests. So I'm prepared to wait and hopefully for the 15th that we can forge ahead together for that celebration. Thank you.
Let's redirect to the CAO with regards to if a report were to be requested from council. The 15th is pretty soon. In terms of staff capacity to sort of address some of the questions that are involved here, would we have a report by next week, or would it be the first regular meeting in May?
We certainly would try for the 15th, just because we know we've got a fairly hefty schedule of specific things coming up on the council agenda. So if we don't get it back to the 15th, it'll be almost the end of May, unfortunately. So it will depend a little bit. I think one thing we'll have to check with is our insurance provider, because that's one thing I want to see if there's another way to look at this and still give the community the things they need. So we can try and have something back by the 15th. I think we'll try our hardest.
Okay, thank you. Is that how we should proceed, colleagues? Yeah. I see gentle nods. Councillor Richardson, let's have it.
As I had made, thank you, and through you, as I had made the initial motion to accept that, I'm willing to hold off until those other checks and balances can be put in place by the 15th. I think that would be appropriate. But as Councillor Rothwell had said, the time is of the essence, that we don't want this lingering and carrying on for an awful long time, because there's no quicker way to deflate the enthusiasm of volunteers, which are difficult to find. So it'd be nice to be able to expedite this if at all possible, and I'd be willing to remove, if necessary, for next discussion on the 15th.
Do you foresee, let me sort of direct this to CAO Snell, if we bring a report for the 15th, the report may suggest that if we proceed with the council committee, then the usual appointments process happens. That's one possible avenue. That's another delay, right? So I'm just sort of querying about how you think we should work towards a report next week that would be expeditious.
I just with the work of the committee and the mayor and deputy mayor, if it looks like we're going in that direction, we could possibly have draft bylaw available for the meeting on the 15th if necessary.
Okay.
Just at least appoint the members of the committee that we know as of Friday.
Okay.
We can always appoint more members as they come available to the committee.
So perhaps then we should convene the appointments committee before the end of this week so that we can at least be in a ready, our powder is dry kind of condition should council wish to make those appointments and adopt a council committee for this purpose. Does that seem reasonable, colleagues? We'll sort of jump the gun a little bit. We'll do the work and then we can bring it back and let council decide amongst the options. But if one of the options is to make appointments, we'll have things ready. Okay. All right. So our resolution then is to direct staff to prepare a report on the considerations for appointing a committee of council. Heidi, I hope you're catching this. Considerations for a committee of council to address the Listowel 150. However, if you want to spell sesquicentennial, you're perfectly good with doing that. All right. Does that seem reasonable? Am I missing anything in the motion? Short of requesting that staff be as quick as possible on this? Chris, we don't need to do anything about authorizing the appointments the committee of council? No. Okay. All right. I'll call for a mover on the resolution. Councillor Rothwell, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Andreessen. All right. Any discussion or debate further? Okay. Seeing none, let's, if the clerk is ready, let's have that vote. Okay, Councillor Andreessen records a manual in favor vote. And with that, we have a unanimous decision in favor. That's carried. Thank you. All right. To the team who've stepped forward, thank you for stepping forward. We will work as we can this week to come back with a fulsome approach to this that meets with council's usual practices, I think. All right. Let's move on then. That brings us to agenda item number 9, reports from departments and key staff. We have one item tonight from the Corporate Services Department. As item 9.1.1, council is invited to make some decisions about the work done by Watson & Associates in association with Dr. Robert Williams relating to ward boundaries and council composition for the 2026 Municipal Council election in North Perth. This report has been available subsequent to a rigorous process for several months, and it may be argued that the time has come for a decision. I think, should we turn over to Clerk Clark, the introduction of our guests, and then we'll give you the floor. Go ahead.
In response to the November meeting of council, when it was requested that we hear from the consultant team from Watson & Associates again, I'm happy to introduce Dr. Robert Williams and Josh Valenti from that consulting team to once again go over their final report.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us a chance to talk about this again. We have prepared a brief presentation, partly because it's been a while since we've been through this, and also I'm hoping that those who are watching the meeting are able to follow where we are, because this is something that may not have been evident in the earlier stages. So the first question is, why was this review undertaken in the first place? And our perspective on this is that many municipal best practices involve reviewing, say, services that, as we put it up here, are considered necessary and desirable,
review them on a regular basis. The organizational arrangements to deliver them are reviewed on a regular basis. And our sense is then that the structure, the body that actually makes those decisions, should also be subject to a review from time to time. And that's what we've undertaken here. Let's look at the structure of the council, the structure of decision making, to simply catch up, if I can put it that way. And as the second two bullets point out, the North Perth governance structure, which was a mayor and 9 others elected in 3 wards, was established in 1998 and has not been significantly changed since that time. There was a variation with the move of the election of the deputy mayor from one of the council seats to an at-large position, but that was from 1999. So not a lot of change in that time. And as we point out in here, the population of North Perth has increased by about 6,000 since that time. So the electoral system that was created to deal with a population of a certain size is perhaps needs to be reconsidered in the light of a larger overall population and a more concentrated population in one part of the municipality, namely the urban area of Listowel. So it's the landscape is different. The structures are simply need to be reviewed. We I think made a passing reference the last time talking about a tune-up. Okay, you've had a structure in place. You need to tune up. I have to say, as we move along, we've ended up basically with a trade-in, not a tune-up, but that was because of what we discovered. And that next slide talks about what we discovered when we began to look carefully at your governance structure. And this was not a case of trying to deliberately change things, but to look at how it was done, how it's compared to other places, and whether there is a case to be made for a modification. And what we discovered is that, and Josh can speak if need be about where some of this came from, but we talked to all of you, we talked to staff, we talked to some members of the community. There is support for maintaining a ward system to elect councillors, but there's little, and the point here is there's very little appetite to change the overall number. So we're still talking about a 10-member council. Maintaining wards we'll touch on in a moment. There is also, I think, general sense that the deputy mayor position, now at large from 1999, is the right direction to go for this municipality, given the role that's involved with that. But we also determine that there's a strong case to be made for modifying the election of your 3rd county representative from being one of the ward councillors to what we would call a councillor at large. So it would be a 3rd at-large position. Each of those people would serve on county council, and we made that suggestion on the basis, as I put it here, rather perhaps a bit more tersely than I might, but consistently. If you're going to have 3 representatives, they should presumably all be selected on the same basis, instead of having 2 elected at large and 1 elected by council. The eligibility factor, that the 2 offices were open to anyone in the municipality who chose to run, but the 3rd one had to be from the other 8 members of council. They were the only people who could run. So consistency was lacking, and the expectations, and again, we heard this from another number of sources, that the expectations attached to being a county councillor are different than those for being a ward councillor. And again, it might be better for individuals who wish to do that, to serve on county council, to enter an election with that as a goal, and not to simply end up being selected after the fact. So that was part of why we made some suggestions about the composition. The other part there it's touched on is that the 3-ward configuration fell short. It does not meet what we could call population parity, which is a key part of representative institutions in Canada. The electoral areas, such as wards or constituencies, should be as close as possible to one another in population. That's not the case in the 3 wards in North Perth. And even another variation of that, something that was referred to as proportional equality. If a ward has twice as many people as another, it could have twice as many seats. In your case, it was a little more nuanced than that, with 3, 3, and 2 in the outset, at the outset, but, or, sorry, 4, 3, and 2, now changed to 3, 3, and 2, and they don't match either. So again, when we looked at it, we found maybe that is something also that needs to be changed. And the last point on this slide is that, yes, there's going to be population growth, but it's not a case of saying that'll fix it. It won't. It will, in fact, make it worse. So you've got a structure that has some limitations, as we discovered, and decided that some changes would be appropriate. Now, the changes that we have recommended are open to council. You do have the legislative authority to make the kinds of changes that we are addressing, and these are summarized on this chart. The Municipal Act actually doesn't tell you much about that, other than to say you can determine the composition of council, that is, how many of you there will be. You can determine how the members of council are to be elected, other than the mayor, which under the Act must be an at-large position. You could change the way the rest of council can be elected, so that's a possibility by general vote, at-large, or some combination. So that's also within your power. And then the third bullet there, reminding us as we're coming toward this, that you have the authority to divide or redivide a municipality into wards, or to in fact dissolve the wards entirely. That's a section, that's a different section of the Act, Section 222, which, as we'll touch on in a moment, is open to appeal. We've heard that there is some thought about, well, why do we have wards at all? Why don't we just elect everybody at large? And there was and we hear this in a number of our studies. A number of municipalities have said, well, wards are a problem. You've got to keep changing them. You can't vote for people. I like to vote for somebody, but the person's running in another ward. I can't vote for them. Why don't we just have no wards at all? And we remind you in this slide that the election of councillors by ward was actually part of the original ministerial restructuring order that established North Perth from the three component parts. The province basically said, you'll have a new municipality from three parts, and there needs to be wards to reflect that process. On a general level, though, wards are based on providing a voice to identifiable communities of interest within the municipality. That in a case of having no wards, certain parts of the community are either underrepresented or not even represented at all. I've heard stories of this kind of thing happening in some other nearby municipalities where wards were eliminated and suddenly everybody comes from one part of the municipality and nobody comes from the other. I'm not saying that would happen here, but that is a risk. Having wards, at least as we suggest, means that certain parts of the community can anticipate having a representative. And in the case of North Perth, this is very important with the significant rural component, which we know is a very big part of this municipality. If there were no wards, it's conceivable you could have 10 members of council all elected from Listowel, or none elected from Listowel. I mean, the point is it can work both ways. Having a ward at least means that there are voices representing certain distinctive parts of the municipality. That's what it's there to do. And on a more practical level, too, the last bullet, ward system elections simplify voter choice. Instead of having a ballot, and some of you may be familiar with what this looks like in Stratford, having a ballot with 28 names and you pick 10, that does not enhance the chances of voters making educated selections at election time. And so simplified access at election time, and also changing the way elected officials relate to the community. As I suggest in this slide, if in fact every member of council were elected at large, you'd have, each one of you would have 17,000 constituents. Completely different than you would do as a ward councillor at the moment. So having wards we believe is a better way to go for a community like North Perth with part-time counselors and those different elements at play. Then, of course, if there are wards, and we certainly advocate maintaining wards, they should be designed around the principles that are set out here. The four key principles related to population growth, related to the representation of those communities of interest, and using identifiable boundaries. Those are all wrapped up in a concept called effective representation. The relationship between the electors and the representatives, and the representatives and the electors. Those are part of the system of effective representation. So in a practical sense, when we actually turn again to the system in front of us, we discover that in at least three of the principles, the current system does not really meet those expectations. Population is not evenly distributed. The growth will not improve that. Communities of interest, in the sense that there is rural and urban, is reasonably successful. But that is primarily because you're dealing with the pre-amalgamation municipalities, which legally disappeared over 25 years ago. So you're basing the communities on entities that have no legal status. The topographical and geographical features, boundaries, that's pretty simple. That's the same ones that have always been there, and they're pretty clear, although I believe there's still some confusion around the borders of Listowel itself. But by and large, that works. But then effective representation, because of those issues, is not met in our view. So what all of that has come to is that we brought a report to council back in November, and then we came back to talk to you in July about the findings and where those recommendations where the proposed models were put before you. And at that point, we understood council back in July to tell us, come back in a phase 2, a ward boundary review built around three perspectives. One, that the deputy mayor should still be elected at large. We're not going to change that. But that it also includes an arrangement to elect one councillor at large as that third county representative. So we folded that into the review that we did. And then the election of up to 8 councillors in single-member wards. That was the direction we got from council last July. So the consultant team took those directions and prepared a number of 7 ward options, again, circling back to keep the number at 10, with 3 taken out of the mix, 7 wards, single-member wards, and those were taken out for public consultation. And 2 of those recommendations were brought back to council on November 20th for consideration. We're back. Here we are. I'm going to ask Josh to talk a little bit about those 2 options, and then we can try to determine what happens after that. Josh?
Thanks, Bob, and good evening, everyone. So back in October, we had 3 options, preliminary options prepared, and we went out to public engagement through October and early November. And through those engagement sessions, we did come up with 2 final recommended options, which are part of that November report. Option 1 was one of those 3 options that we did present out to the public for the engagement sessions. And this consisted of 7 wards, 7 councillors, 1 councillor per ward, with 2 dominantly rural wards, being wards 1 and 6. You can see there the teal and the dark blue, and the other 5 wards having some form of urban culture and nature to them. So option 1, we can see here, again, we look at the Listowel area, those 4 wards around Listowel. We are now using defined lines, road networks, not just the urban boundary that is previously enacted. So again, something cleaner and easy to just notify which ward you are in. In this option, we do have Newry divided into two wards, Ward 6 and 7, which we'll see in option 2 as one of those things that we did alter. So looking at the population balance, again, this was through the engagement was one of the priorities from the community was to balance population now and in the future. So we are looking out 10 years here. And as we can see here, there is a couple greens or one green and a couple teal. So those are within those optimal 25% longer term, with two being outside of that 25% variance. The recommended option 2 is a variation of option 1 through feedback and a few of those other options that we had out to the community. What you can see here is really a difference between wards 1, 6, and 7. In wards 1, we brought that line down to try and balance out that population a little bit from 84 to 84 from line 86 there. And then also in Ward 7, we brought it down to line 71 to capture all of Newry there. As you can see, again, looking at that population balance, we got another green that popped up with Ward 7 now being within that 25 or within that 5% range. Similarly, there are two red ones outside of that range. Again, those are one of them being the rural wards, covering a large geography, so there is some takeaways in that sense as well. So those are the two options that we had recommended, and I'll turn it back to Bob for the next steps.
Nearly done. As you can see, the words involve some trade-offs. That sounds a bit crass, but basically, you're never going to get a perfect system. So these are versions that allow for a larger population in a more concentrated area and a smaller population in rural areas. So next steps. Basically, as I've suggested earlier, Council has the legislative authority to implement the direct election of a councillor at large through a bylaw. So that we were recommending on your direction back in July, give us a system to elect a county councillor at large. You have the authority to do that. You also have the authority to modify the number of wards and their boundaries, or you could eliminate wards altogether. You have that power through Section 222 of the Municipal Act. The difference between those two parts is that the bylaw under the first heading cannot be appealed. You have the last word on that. A bylaw under the second one is open to appeal, which means if you adopted, let's say, one of these options and a member of the community, it only takes one person, didn't like it, you would have to go before the OLT and defend that decision. So tonight, we're requesting a council decision to request staff to prepare bylaws that would enact the changes based on the recommendations included in the November 20th, 2023 Council Composition and Ward Boundary Review Final Report. I'll be happy to respond, Mr. Mayor, to any questions.
Indeed. Thank you. Okay, colleagues, this could become a very complex discussion, so I'm going to be a little assertive here about, I think, how we go about this discussion. At this point, if there are questions about the facts of the report for the consulting team, I think we should get those out and ask them while we have them standing at the podium. So does anyone wish to ask questions about the facts? I don't need opinions about where we're going with regards to resolution. I just want facts at this point if we can. Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Thank you. Through the mayor, I'm pretty sure this is a question. So let's start with the county elector. The county election, the person's elected at large, does that person still come to the council chambers for regular meetings?
Yes, that's the power that the county councillor now has. It's a member of your council, simply elected in a different way, and that's part of what we were getting at here. You have the power to change how your county councillor is elected to sit on this council.
And still have a voting?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
No, it's simple. The only change is that the county councillor has to be elected across the municipality rather than around this horseshoe.
Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Kaysenberg. The question I have is, in the current system and in any proposed system, could a candidate run in a ward they don't live in?
The qualification to serve as a candidate involves simply being an eligible elector in the municipality. You can run anywhere you want. Any eligible elector can run for any office under this proposal.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else with questions? Fact you want? Insight into the technicalities here. Let's go with Councillor Anstead.
Thank you, Mayor Kastenberg. Through you. Thanks, Dr. Williams, for your report. I'm just wondering for council if you could just refresh our memories on the optimal ranges, just because it's a little bit hazy to me.
Yeah, so the optimal ranges is really plus or minus 25% of the average. So if we have 7 wards, you divide the total population by 7, and that gives you that optimal number that you're looking for. And then you have the light pink ones there, which are 5 to 25%, and then you have the dark red ones, which are 25% either side away, and then you have the green ones that are within that 5% range.
If I may, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go
Again,
ahead.
there's no rules about this. The province says you can have wards or not. You can divide it up. We have adopted a measure of that to try to come close to finding that population parity. Optimum is about parity. How close can you get to an average? I've joked, and I probably made used the line here already. I prefer to call it an optimal ward rather than an average ward. Nobody wants to live in an average ward. So ideally, you're right at that number, but we recognize the population's not distributed evenly. There are various things, so you've got to have a bit of leeway. And as Josh indicates, we work up to 25% if possible, and occasionally we have to go beyond that. But it's a range of variation that is widely used in electoral practices across Canada.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with questions? Okay. Sorry, let me get Deputy Mayor, yeah?
One more, please. So I'm just going to use the Wallace Ward as an example. So currently now with the Wallace Ward, we have 2 representatives. And based on the map here now, if this go through, we'll have 1 councillor that's going to represent, looks like 95% of Wallace Ward, and then another councillor that's going to represent a portion of the Listowel Ward and likely 5% of the Wallace Ward.
If I may, Wallace Ward disappears. Wallace Ward disappears. Wallace as a community, as a historical, is still there. The Wallace Ward is what changes. This is the tool you use to elect the members of council that you're changing. You're not changing the fabric of that community. You're not changing anything else around that. It's how you elect them. If you want to put a name on it, that's fine. We've just numbered them in here. But yes, it's different. And again, coming back to parity, the numbers that we're working with reflect the distribution of population across the whole of North Perth. And what is currently Wallace Ward is only a fraction. The fraction population in there is only about 1/7 of the whole municipality. So that's the difference. And if I can turn it around the other way, without being provocative, in a sense, it's overrepresented now. And that's what we're trying to even this out across the role for each elected representative, and to simplify the arrangement where some members of your municipality get to vote for 3 people and others only get to vote for 2. And that's inequality that we're trying to address in here as well.
Okay, other questions of fact or technical questions? Okay, Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks, Mayor Todd. So thanks again for the presentation. So I just want to clarify just on that last point. An electorate in any of these option 1 or 2, the electorate is actually voting for 4. Their ward councillor, mayor, deputy mayor, and county councillor, correct?
Correct. Yes.
So technically, it's each one of the electors in that ward are voting for 4.
Every elector in the municipality votes for the same number of people, which does not happen now.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, anyone else with questions or technical nuances that you want explained about the report? Okay, not seeing that. So here's how I'm going to structure this, if you'll indulge me. I think we have two things to decide, and there's a variation in the second. All right? So the first thing to decide, from my take, remembering that we earlier gave the consultants instructions that we wanted 10 members of council, and that we were not generally in favor of an at-large council. The first thing for us to sort of give indication about is whether we wish to continue with the current system that has elected all of us, or do we move to an adjusted ward system, which in this case, we've had the expertise, we've had the analysis, we've had consultants work on this who come with some esteem, who've put forward two options. So the first question, I think, for each of us is, do we move away from the current system to something else? And the something else generally is the two options, although there's a wrinkle that I'll throw in at the end of that when we get there. So I want to hear from every councillor your position on whether we shift from the current system to something different. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go around to each of you, right? So we either start with the Councillor Andreessen or Councillor Rothwell. Would you like to flip one of these coins that we were given earlier? All right, Councillor Rothwell, then we'll start with you because she was the first to point. I think that what I want is just a sense of stay or change, all right?
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. It's always interesting to go first because it's usually starting at the beginning of the alphabet. Anyways, I did, like others, had good conversation with residents here today and a couple of actually. This system has served us fairly well. And the reason why I believe it served us fairly well is that thanks to the leadership and staff, we've agreed whether we live in an urban area or in one of our rural areas, that we're all North Perth. We're not necessarily fixed by the ward that we come from because we vote on all matters. So in that respect, I want to give a tip of the hat to the councils before us that have got us to this point and have actually put us in the place that we can actually deal with the growth that we've had over these last number of years in particular. That being said, I've said at this council table before, I'm certainly an advocate for representation by population, and I know, based on the numbers that our consultants have said to us, that we do have overrepresentation and an underrepresentation happening in our rural and urban sense. So to give the same sort of voice, I'm advocating that we should make a change, but not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think we have to recognize that we have come a long way on the basis of the previous councils, on the basis that we did get along, have got along, and do get along, urban and rural, for the benefit of all North Perth. Thank you.
So I heard open to change from you as the first decision. Councillor Richardson, let's have you next.
And thank you. And thank you for the report. It's quite enlightening to see that. I tend to agree with Councillor Rothwell that we've done well up until this point, and I've always been an advocate, even though initially I was an advocate for an at-large electorate system, but I've always been an advocate that the council that sits around North Perth makes decisions for all of North Perth, whether it be the 3 wards that we have now or tentatively if we go towards 7. The only time that specifically, as it is today, that really individual wards get mentioned is election time. Elma, Wallace, and I don't see that changing an awful lot going Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 5. And I think there's a possibility of some splintering of people becoming more ward-centric than North Perth-centric. That's my 2 cents, because this council has always done very well making the decisions for North Perth, regardless if it happens in Gowanstown or Moncton or Atwood or right here in Listowel, that this council makes all the decisions for all of North Perth. So for what's proposed now, I'm opting that we status quo.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Nordum, you're next.
Thanks for the report here. When we started this, I did somewhat agree. I do believe that some of the new builds outside of the Listowel ward that are voting in the Elma ward is not right. But in the end, I do fear for rural representation. I feel like Matt Richardson said it very well. So I will vote for staying with status quo.
Thank you. Councillor Johnston is next.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I truly believe change is long overdue. My lack of hair and color of my beard tell you somewhat how long I've been around this table. I was actually on Elma Council when amalgamation happened, and a lot of the wards, it was a battle and a fight that we spent hours and hours and hours trying to protect identity of Elma, identity of Listowel, identity of Wallace, and that's where the numbers came up with. I don't think there really was any consideration back in 96, 97 of representation by population. It was, it was almost an arm wrestle and a fight to get as many as we could for Elma, as many as we could for Wallace and others. So we elect representatives federally, provincially, by population, and I believe we should locally as well. I know it takes away from the rural vote and being a farmer that's casting against that, but it's the way we do it, and we're not equitable that councillors in Listowel represent over 3,000 and councillors in Elma right now represent 1,200 or whatever it is. It's not equitable. So I am in favor of changing.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Kellum.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Kasenberg, and thank you to my colleagues. It's starting to be some similar ideas coming out through this. But, since I believe it was back in 1998 when we did amalgamate, we all are working together. We all ask questions in all different wards. Whether the Wallace ward is down 230 some people, I believe Elma's down 38, Listowel's up over 4198. I dare to fear or beg that a councillor, if they're asked a question in another ward, that they do not answer similar to yourself and myself. So moving forward, I am not supporting a change. I'm going to support status quo. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Duncan, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your report. I guess my biggest concern with splintering it into 8 wards is voter turnout. We've all seen what municipal election turnout is the last couple of elections. And I fear if you take choice away from people and make it a smaller number of electors for each individual councillor, I think you're just going to see less and less people coming out to vote. I think the current system we have, though flawed proportionally for number of people representation-wise, I think it's equitable when you look at the size of our municipality. So I think I'm feeling that we should stay with the status quo. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Duncan. Councillor Blazek.
When we amalgamated in 1998, we were given a restructuring order that required us to have 3 wards. That's the reason we have 3 wards. When I was elected, saw myself from day one as representing the entire population of North Perth. I have answered every phone call from every person in Elma Ward, Wallace Ward, Listowel Ward equally, and will continue to do so regardless of what we decide. My concern is that if we separate into several more wards, as Councillor Duncan said, we're going to see less and less voter turnout. I feel like rather than encouraging the idea of a whole community, we're encouraging more separation. And I think that we're going to see a rise in voter apathy and a rise in acclamations. And That's the biggest part that I struggle with. If you look at historical numbers in our elections, Listowel Ward, for example, in the 2022 election had 6 people running for 3 seats, and that was a big year. If we had 6 people running in the proposed 4 wards for Listowel, we're looking at acclimating 2 of those wards. Why show up to vote? So if I'm being honest, and I know that this isn't an option that we are currently discussing, but I would be in favor of one whole ward and elections at large. But since that is not the question that I was asked this evening, I am in favor of status quo.
Okay. By my count, status quo is going to win at this point, it looks like. So, Councillor Anstead, I'll still call on you, but I'm just sort of doing the numbers here. And
Yep. Well, thank you very much, Mayor Kasenberg, and I'll just be brief because I know we've been talking about this for a while. And again, thanks to the consultants for your efforts on this. Obviously, a very long process. I mean, we talked about when we came back in July, and then we had it deferred from November, and now we're talking about it now in April. Obviously, and I think I mentioned this before, I wasn't present during amalgamation. I think I was 9 years old, 10 years old, to date myself. But from what I can see, and again, I've seen this with other municipalities and looking at their sort of electoral histories, wards were maintained, Listowel, Wallace, Elma, for a reason. And I think in this situation, obviously we've had it since 1998, I like to think that Listowel, North Perth, I should say, is the envy of a lot of municipalities in Ontario. We have great schools, we have a great hospital, we have a great volunteer community. I don't think that we would have those things if we weren't running a successful municipality. And I think that speaks to strong leadership from our senior leadership team, but also from the councils that we've had, who I would point out were all elected in the current ward system. Now, that being said, I'm certainly open to hearing about change, and we've talked a lot about it tonight. And I'm also open down the road to having a discussion, depending on what North Perth looks like down the road. But at present, I would be in support of our current system. Thank you.
okay, thank you, Councillor Anstead. Councillor Andreessen.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I know that sounds like we have a lot of agreement so far. I have to tell you that in the 2 times that I've served as councillor, this is the most difficult issue that for me has come across, my desk as a councillor. I have found this to really be a quandary for me. I really believe in the importance of representing our population. I really do. But what's really bothering me is how the new 7 wards have been created. And I think if the 7 wards were created differently, I might be more open to this change. But I'm not really happy with how they've been created. I like how our current ward system has, in some cases, 2 or 3 councillors in each little ward, that we can work together to support our constituents and also work as a whole. And I've heard that from, that has been also an input I've received and feedback I've heard from residents. It's nice to have 2 that they can speak to. But with the new system with one councillor per ward, that wouldn't happen. My preference would be to have like 6 wards and then 2 people in each ward, but then a different setup of how these wards would be created. So given the presentation of options this evening, I'm not ready to support these options and would have to go with the status quo because I don't feel confident in a vote to support these options at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, I've heard from all of you. I can count the numbers, so I think the appropriate resolution that should be drafted is that I believe we've received this report for information in the past. Should we receive this report tonight from the consulting team?
Yeah, you can receive their updated presentation dated April 8th.
Okay, so I think the resolution looks like that council receives the updated presentation and that council chooses to maintain the current electoral system in North Perth for the 2026 election. That's kind of what I'm hearing. Clerks with me? Am I missing anything here? Okay, I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Callum, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Any further discussion or debate? All right, seeing none, let's have a vote. Oh, e-scribe is, are we getting there? Do we need to call a manual vote on this?
Yes.
We need to have a manual vote. Okay, so
E-scribe is not working.
can I get you to read the resolution out then again, just so that people can hear it?
It deleted it, but.
Oh goody.
So we heard that council receives the updated presentation from Watson and Associates dated April 8th, 2024, and that council.
For information.
For. Do you have any?
The council chooses to maintain the current council composition and electoral ward system for the 2026 election of the municipality of North Perth. Something like that. Yeah. I hope my movers and seconders are still good with that. All right. All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. We got through it with a process, and it worked. And now we have a decision. All right. I'm glad to see that that's the case. I think it would be incumbent to call a brief health break at this point. Let's return to our chairs at 8:35. We have had our health break, and now we're back to our agenda. Let's turn to item 9.2, reports from the Development and Protective Services Department. As item 9.2.1, Council is invited to lift a holding provision affecting lands that we would consider enlistable on Mitchell Road South, but that are properly described as being in Alma Ward. A site plan has now been registered on title, which was the requirement that invoked, or at least in part invoked, the holding provision. And so we have with us a County of Perth planner, Nathan Garland, who works on North Perth files. He's our expert to present an overview of this action. Welcome, Mr. Garland. Let me get the microphone set up for you.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg. I do have a short presentation outlining the application and the file for Council's consideration, so I will go through that now, and then I'm happy to address or answer any questions at the end. So the application is for zoning bylaw amendment. Even though it's a lift of holding, it is still a zoning bylaw amendment, Z04 2024. The owner is Sterling Fisher, and the applicant is Oaken Noble Developments, represented by Nathan Hallman. Agent is the same. The location is Concession 1, Part Lot 30, Alma Ward. Registered Plan 44R 5780, Parts 1 and 2 in the municipality of North Perth. The next slide, please. There's just an outline of the subject property included in the report photo. The area to be rezoned is currently zoned as C5-4-H10, so the holding provision does reference the need for a site plan agreement and specifically the number of unit counts on the subject property, because there is some servicing constraints in the area, so that's why the holding provision is there. The subject of rezoning is requesting to move it to a C5-4 zone, so that would remove that holding provision to no longer be in place. So, as I mentioned, the holding provision is no longer required, as a site plan agreement has been registered on the subject property, just outlining the unit counts that meets the servicing requirements there. Next slide, please. Just a couple photos of the subject property. So it is a bit of a hole right now. There is some overgrowth happening, but that would be the future development located through there. There is a site plan that's been registered for both the units and townhouses as well as the apartment complex. So there is some development being proposed. There is some slight changes being considered right now to that site plan, but there wouldn't be an overall change in the unit count. So that's why staff are considering it appropriate to bring forward this zone change at that small time. Next slide, please. So as addressed, the holding provisions of the subject property have been met and therefore are requested to be lifted. Holding is in place to confirm the site plan agreement, so the holding provision does reference the 140 unit count for the subject property, so it is at or below that. The proposed change, I think, is maybe slightly below that 140, but still in the upper range of that. Site plan agreement is in place as of October 2nd, 2023, confirming the unit. Changes have been considered to the current site plan, but would not affect the overall unit count, so it wouldn't go above that 140 units. Units are considered a mix of the row or townhouse type of development that's happening out there, as well as a commercial block for commercial development also. And then, as mentioned, the property will rezone or request to be rezoned from C5-4-H10 to C5-4. Next slide, please. And therefore, it is by recommendation that North Perth Council approves Z4-2024 to remove the holding provision affecting lands described as Concession 1, Part Lot 30, Alma Ward, RP 44R 5780, Parts 1 and 2, Municipality of North Perth. I'm happy to address or answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Garland. Questions or first comments on this request? Councillor Andreessen.
Yes, thank you through Mayor Kasenberg. I just have a question for clarification. On page 152 of the package, that's on your, I know it's on your page, Nathan. There's a picture of hash marks of the lot, and then there's this long strip there. But then on the picture that you showed us, it didn't have that long strip. So I'm just wondering about what's going on with that long strip.
My understanding is the long strip is there. It's likely for a servicing easement, so stormwater management specifically, because it is directed towards the Maitland River back there. But let me double check. Was it on the presentation? I should say through your worship. Is it through the presentation that I included, or?
So it was just, the presentation this evening, it didn't have that long strip. So I wasn't sure.
The clerk just to flip
it. It did? I can't.
I think it does. I think
it did? Okay. There it is.
Sorry,
okay.
Just a long yellow line. It may be reoriented just for council's consideration through your worship. It may be reoriented
Okay.
just the wrong way, so that's why it might throw it off a little bit.
Thank you. It was the red that was deceiving for me. I thought it was just a line, but it's a strip. Okay. So that'll be for servicing.
Servicing stormwater probably towards that back rear area, so trail possibly access, yeah.
And then a secondary question. Thank you. So do you mind just clarifying how many units will go into that spot?
Through your worship, in response to Councillor Andreessen's question, so 140 units is what's the maximum proposed right now. There might be slightly less. I think it's the 135 range or so that we're looking at. So 130 to 140 units is the upper maximum. And then there would be a commercial block as well proposed as part of that. So.
And there will contain some single-family units in that?
They're all intended to be I don't believe any individual single-family dwelling units at this time, no.
All right, thank you. That's helpful for my clarification.
Okay, anyone else with questions or first comments? Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd, and thanks, Nathan, for your report. Again, knowing the number of units is helpful, and I know that there's a working on the site plan agreement. So this council has expressed its concerns to ensure that we have significant density, and not knowing what the density actually is on a per hectare or per acre basis in terms of the residential block. So 135 or 140 units, what would that density sort of give us? And my understanding through you is that they're townhouses or stacked townhouses, I think is what we heard before, because as I recall, this had an official plan amendment because it was for a mixed use block, which gives us the commercial and the residential. It's just a matter of closing the loop to make sure that this council knows what density we have in the block that's being proposed here.
Thank you. Through your worship in response to council, I might ask the applicant, because they are here this evening, to respond to that if that's acceptable to council. Do you know the unit? I think we can look into it. I believe it's
5.7 acres and 135, 140 residential.
one moment while I get my calculator here.
And 14,000 square foot commercial building.
All right, some of us were of the generation where we did mental math at grade school. Let's see if anyone can come up with the magic here.
So it is approximately 23.7 units per acre. So you're looking at 11 or so, 10 or 11 units per other way around, sorry. 50, around 50 units per hectare, sorry. Around 50 units per hectare. Thank you, Councillor Johnson.
So much for the mental math. Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you very much just for that. And again, it's we said before this council that we were excited to see this development to occur, and certainly we appreciate the work that staff has done, and certainly the developer. We need to see this development happen as soon as possible, and anything that we can do to facilitate that, I think, is great to do so. And we certainly need to get what's called the missing middle within North Perth, and we're not going to see the high density of 5 and 6 story apartment buildings like we have further in that neighborhood, but that's only a part of our communities that would be looking at that. We still have those that would appreciate townhouses and stacked townhouses, so I'm certainly in support, and thanks very much for the additional information. It would have been nice to see the site plan here, although it's not council's responsibility. It's always nice to see a photo that gives a bit more detail. Just a thing for me. Thank you.
Thanks. I don't know. I mean, there's a recommendation, a gentle recommendation there, and we shouldn't go off target too far, but perhaps CAO Snell, we can inquire of the county about whether, when we're dealing with matters like this, we could see a copy of the site plan as part of the council package.
I would be happy to include it as part of the council package and as well as the presentation as well, too.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or first comments on this matter? All right, the resolution as follows, that North Perth Council approves SED 4-2024 to remove a holding provision affecting lands described as Concession 1, Part Lot 30, Elma Ward, RP 44R 5780, Parts 1 and 2, Municipality of North Perth. Moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Johnston. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have the vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Garland, for that one. Stay there. I believe we have you up next for 9.2.2. In this one, we are asked to grant an exemption from part lot control to O'Malley Homes for lands in the Elma ward. This is usually done to allow lot line adjustments, including the creation of new lot lines in a parcel that is developed. Mr. Garland, do you want to give us a brief overview of this action, please?
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, members North Perth Council again. I am here to provide an application for exemption from part lot control. It is file number 1, 2024. It is for O'Malley Homes. The location is blocks 75 and 76, plan 44M 74. Municipally, they are known as 110 through 190 Hood Street West and also 115 through 195 Twomley in Listowel, Municipality of North Perth. Next slide, please. So this is an overall sketch of the application or the reference plan that was provided for the exemption. Council will note that they've already approved this application previously. However, the bylaw has since expired. So the bylaws for part lot control exemption, they are good for 2 years. They subsequently expire at the end of those 2 years, and the applicant is required to reapply for an extension. This is similar to severance applications as well, too, just for council's consideration. They also have 2 years to clear those conditions. So that's just some background there to this. So for this application, they are requesting the exemption to create 18 lots, each containing a single-family dwelling unit. The lots being requested for this application are shown as parts 17 through 34. And so that's that inner block that's been highlighted in your report package for you. So they are north of Twomley Street and then just south of Hood Street. The next slide, please. Just a couple of pictures and slides of the subject area. So they are currently under construction. I believe one is being occupied currently. The other 3 are under construction right now, with the other was remaining vacant at this current time. So they are looking at further development as the applications come along and they fill up and they sell them, they move on to the next one. So next slide, please. So for council's information as part of the planning package, it is to be exempt from a part lot control application is required to be part of an approved plan of subdivision. So this was part of the approved plan of subdivision. It is within the R3 zone, so it does meet the detached dwelling requirements. So each detached dwelling would have to meet those required setbacks as per the R3 zone. And then for council's consideration, this previously the bylaw was adopted and approved on April 19th, 2021, and it subsequently lapsed on May the 5th, 2023. You will notice a little bit of a change in the timing and date for that. I did mention 2 years. That's just because there's a county approval process required after that. So the county did approve it on May the 5th. So that's just that timing variation. Next slide, please. And so it is my recommendation that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approve the application by O'Malley Homes for the exemption of part lot control on lands described as Plan 44M74, Blocks 75 and 76, Parts 17 through 34, reference Plan 44R 5892, Listowel Ward, Municipality of North Perth, and that the approved bylaw be provided to the municipality, or that the approved bylaw be provided to the municipality of North Perth to be registered on title. So that just means the bylaw will come back from the county to be registered on title again subsequently. I'm happy to address and answer any questions at this time.
Okay, I have slightly different language in the resolution that I think tidies up the piece that you're struggling with at the end there. All right, questions, first comments? All right, let me read the resolution. Mr. Garland, check to see if we got this right, all right? That the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the application by O'Malley Homes for the exemption of part lot control on lands described as Plan 44M74, Blocks 75 and 76, Parts 17 to 34, RP 44R 589, Listowel Ward, Municipality of North Perth, and that the approved bylaw be registered on title by the Municipality of North Perth.
Works for the Council.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Anstett. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have a vote. And that is carried. Mr. Garland, thanks as always for visiting with us and making things clear. All right, we turn now to item 9.3, reports from the Operations Department. As item 9.3.1, on our agenda, Council is asked to remove a 1-foot reserve along Twomley Street West. This is done to remove barriers for development on lands, in this case, the same lands I think that we considered in 9.2.1. So we're going to hear this time from Mr. Couch on this matter because it generally falls under his portfolio. Mr. Couch, our Manager of Operations, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, members of council. Yes, the previous item was about the same property, lot 30 on Twomley Street West. As a housekeeping item, the removal of a 1-foot reserve, a 0.3 meter reserve that usually restricts development but also allows for securities not to be paid in advance. It's been asked by Okanoble Development to be removed. And essentially, it's an encroachment onto the existing road that you see today, and it would be removed through this bylaw in front of you today. I can answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Couch. Colleagues, any questions on this matter? This is pretty usual stuff. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I have a resolution as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the removal of a 1-foot reserve on Twomley Street West by enacting bylaw 27-2024. Call for a mover. Councillor Andreessen, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Rothwell. Any discussion or debate? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Couch, on that one. Let's keep you there. Item 9.3.2, staff brings forward a request to approve the purchase of some new equipment related to sidewalk plowing. There's a mix of open tender and single source purchasing here from what I can tell, and combined the pricing goes over the budget that was projected for these acquisitions. So Mr. Couch is going to explain, give us a little bit more information. Go ahead.
Thank you. We have two competitions that are in front of us. One is for the sweeper replacement. An Elgin sweeper is being recommended exactly like the one we have today, but a newer one. The older machine is fatigued and seen a few rebuilds. The second purchase is for a sidewalk tractor. We're looking to rebuild that tractor as a single source with the manufacturer. I'll start with the sweeper. The sweeper is using a different procurement practice through Canoe or LAS you might have heard of in the past. It's a municipal and provincially recognized organization procuring buyers group, and so it went through our procurement policy. Honestly, the recommendation is identical to what we would have received if we would have single sourced under our policy, but it does give us the confidence that we're getting the best possible price in Ontario from this vendor. And those prices are in front of you for both these machines. If there's questions on the rebuild of the sidewalk tractor, I can answer those and what the value is. It standardizes our machines to what we have today. And if there's questions on this sweeper replacement for a machine that we have today, I can answer those as well and the pricing.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Couch. Questions or first comments on this? Councillor Nordum.
Thanks, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for your report, Lyndon. I know that the vacuum sweeper is very well used in North Perth. I see that it's mounted on a new Freightliner. I know our municipality operates a fair bit of Volvos. Is there a reason why we're doing a Volvo over a Freightliner, or do we have a choice?
Yeah, yes, thank you through your worship. They provide the cabin chassis with the unit, what they have in stock at the factory floor. So that was what we were provided as a pricing, most competitive price. We did review it, and the operators are more than pleased with the configuration and have sat in one and taken a look at them.
Great, thank you.
All right, anyone else with questions or first comments on this matter? Councillor Rothwell.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd, and thanks for the report, Lynn. Can you just talk more specifically about the single source for the trackless tractor? Is it because it's very unique or special is why we have to single source? Is that correct? Or
yeah, the greatest benefit of the sidewalk tractor rebuild is it eliminates the need for a new Tier 4 engine system, which deals with emissions. It's a simpler machine. It's exactly the machine we have today. Basically, we send it away. All we receive back is the drive train powering the wheels. The rest is a full and brand new rebuild of everything else, including the engine. And yes, it standardizes with two other machines. They all have the same blowers, the same sanders, and the same plows. So if one breaks, the other one can take the other piece and simply go out and do work. But it's one of the three that we have being replaced.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else with questions, comments? All right, let's consider the resolution then as follows. That the Council of Municipality of North Perth approves the purchase of one new Elgin Mega Wind Combo Vacuum Sweeper mounted on new Freightliner M2 chassis with attachments as specified in the canoe quote from vendor Joe Johnson Equipment of Innisfil, Ontario, in the amount of $615,588.49, excluding HST, and that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves a single-source purchase of a new 2024 MT5 trackless tractor with attachments as specified in the quote from Work Equipment Limited of Cortland, Ontario, dated March 18th, 2024, in the amount of $156,250, excluding HST. Can I call for a mover on this one? Councillor Nordham, thank you. And Councillor Richardson will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have a vote. And that is carried. And I think as a special bonus, we should all get to ride the thing for a little bit, right? See how that goes. All right, thank you. Item 9.3.3 has been added to our agenda this evening. Yeah, Mr. Couch, you sat down too quickly. And in this one, staff brings forward some information requests related to parking on Binning Street West. And of course, this is related to the wonderful playoff run of our listable cyclones. So I'm going to call on Mr. Couch to give us an update here on this one. Mr. Couch.
A few years back,
Mic is off.
Thank you. A few years back, we had gone deep into the playoffs, and parking was needed on the street to allow for overflow from the existing municipal facilities. We haven't seen that again until just last Friday. We thought the capacities would hold in the school lot and the arena lot, as well as the Kin Park area. They didn't, and by doing the same thing we did a few years back, and that's allowing parking on the north side of Binning from the school access road all the way up to 165, we're going to be able to accommodate all the additional cars coming from visitors for the hockey game. So the motion is in front of you to allow us that throughout the playoff period and in the future as well, just to streamline the process.
Okay, thank you. Questions or first comments? Councillor Anstead.
Thank you, Mayor Kasenberg, through you. Thanks for bringing this forward, Lyndon. Can we just pull it up on Google Maps? I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing so everybody's clear, if we could. Yeah. So it's just, we're going to park all the way down to...
Correct. Binning
Gun
Street.
Club, yeah, okay.
North side of Binning Street, only the one side from that access road, just to the side between the school and the rec center out to the highway.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Blazek.
Thanks through you, Mayor Todd. Lyndon, when you said in the future, you just mean future playoff seasons, not just in the future whenever, right?
That's correct. I think, do we have the wording for the motion?
Special events, actually. It says special events.
Yeah, it's for other future events. We've had a few other occasions where it's been needed in the past, and instead of approaching council to amend the traffic bylaw under the authority of the road authority, Highway Traffic Act, the operations manager or the public works department CAO could do this ad hoc as needed for an event.
Okay. Do we need more from the clerk or from the CAO on this? Okay. Looks good. All right. Anyone else with questions or comments here? Okay, so I have a resolution that has both immediate and potentially longer-term solution sets here. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the following exemption to the traffic and parking bylaw allowance of parking on the north side of Bidding Street West from the school access road to Road 165 for the remainder of the Listowel Junior B Cyclones 2024 playoff games as necessary, and that the manager of operations be given the authority to allow parking on the north side of Bidding Street West from the school access to Road 165 for future special events held at the Steve Kerr Memorial Complex, including Listowel Junior B Cyclones playoff games as necessary. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Anstett, thank you. Councillor Richardson will be our seconder. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you, Mr. Couch. Let's go Cyclones. Let's take this deep. All right, we are now at item 10 on our agenda. For item 10, councillors, are there any reports you'd like to ask of staff or of our committees? Not seeing anything there, so let's turn to the next item, which is correspondence. Oh, Councillor Rothwell sneaking in under the wire. Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mayor Todd. Sorry, I didn't wave my hand quick enough there. I'd like to, with Council's permission, request a report from the staff, county planning staff in particular, regarding a new report which has just come out called a Blueprint for More and Better Housing. It's how federal, provincial, and municipal governments can ensure we build 5.8 million homes that are affordable, low carbon, and resilient. And this is from the Task Force for Housing and Climate. This just was released in March 2024, and specifically there's items in there that talk to municipal considerations that we can do to streamline and help more housing be developed. And I think this is crucial for us as North Perth as we the county official plan is considered, and especially for North Perth owned lands, that we need to really roll up our sleeves and get ready for this. And I would hope if council agrees that we could ask for a report that's going to help us look at the issues that we need to be considering in our own lands and how we can see or help development of more affordable homes in our community. Thank you.
Okay. Let me just check in with staff here. Is the more appropriate facilitator of this our team or the county? Should we make a request to the county? What do you think, CEO Snow?
I certainly haven't read the report that Councillor Roth was talking about, but I think between the two of us, we'll make sure it comes back to council. I suspect it may include maybe a bit of both from both North Perth and the county.
Okay. I mean, certainly there's some process. If we wish to ask county council to direct planning staff, there's a process there, right? We can't speak to them directly on that front. So just be mindful of who is going to get that request. Do you want a resolution to this effect, CEO Snow? Okay, yeah, so to the effect of directing staff to have a report developed that gives us lots of room on that summarizes the potential actions and insights from what's the name of the report?
Blueprint for More and Better Housing.
Blueprint for More and Better Housing report issued by the
Task Force for Housing and Climate.
Task Force for Housing and Climate. There we go. And that gives you some leeway, I think, to reach out to the county should you need to ask for additional resources. All right, so moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Andreessen. Any discussion or debate? All right, clerk team, you're so reliable. You're with us. Let's have a vote. And that is carried. Thank you for raising that, Councillor Rothwell. All right, now we are going to turn to item 11 on the agenda, and we have received a bunch of correspondence. It's funny how this happens. It's like nothing, 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 and then boom. So we have a bunch of correspondence tonight to sort of address, if we can. First, we have a request from the North Perth Community of Character to approve route and closed roads for their annual character run, which is scheduled for Thursday, May 30th, 2024. I have a resolution as follows. The Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves a request from the North Perth Community of Character to close the following roads from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Thursday, May 30th, 2024 for the 13th Annual Character Run. Binning Street West from the entrance of the Steve Kerr Memorial Complex to Road 165, and Road 165 from Perth Line 86 to Line 87. And that North Perth Fire, Public Works, OPP, and Perth County EMS will be advised of the event. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Anstead. A discussion, debate, yes, indeed. Councillor Andries.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor Kasenberg. I distinctly remember last year's event. We got some feedback from local residents on that road who had some very deep concerns about this closure. The other concern I have is that this road is an artery now for agricultural equipment, for business operations and trucks to move around North Perth. And the closure on this is, I know the run starts at 6, but this closure is from 4:30 to 7:30, which is actually longer than a typical parade closure in our municipality. So I have some pretty big concerns about the closure of this. My wondering is, we have a wonderful trail system. Is it possible to do a run on the trail system versus on public roads that are our main arteries in our municipality? So that would be my feedback. And at this point, I don't think I could support this closure at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andreessen. Councillor Rothwell, I saw you waving your hand too.
Thanks very much, Mayor Todd. I was involved last year in this event and rode the entire area on a bicycle to make sure things were fine as a volunteer effort. There were issues of concern that were raised by some members of the public regarding an event that they were having, and those were worked around by the committee that was undertaken during that time. I would hope that we could resolve some of those issues of concern that Councillor Andreessen has brought forward. And I do believe that those issues are possible, and I think the committee can speak for themselves as the reason why this is a preferred location for the character run. I'm not going to go into those details because I'm not involved in any way any further. But I think the benefit of this location is that it's all under one umbrella, if you will, in a location. And it makes things a lot easier in terms of, and instead of crossing roads. That's the reason from a public safety perspective that they've brought this forward, as I understand. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff have any insight into this one? I mean, I know that the Gun Club Road is not particularly largely residential, right? It's quite rural in its character. So there aren't a lot of residents along that road who are affected potentially by the closure, but there are some. And we have to give credence to the fact that they be appropriately notified if we were to proceed. You have any general comments about this, given that there was some outcry last year about this event?
So certainly I think when any municipality holds an event where road closures are happening, it's an inconvenience for anybody who lives on that road. For example, I mean, happens in the biggest cities, like when Toronto closes Lakeshore for the annual car race. It brings lots of inconveniences to the community, but it's necessary if we're going to have community events. There are 3 residents that will be impacted by this closure. Certainly, I would hope the committee has some discussion in advance with the three homeowners to give them ample notice so that they can make alternate arrangements if necessary. It is, although longer than a parade, it is a fairly significant or fairly short road closure. It's 3 hours. But hopefully the committee can work with all affected landowners, whether it's this road closure or any road closure. It seems to be increasingly we're hearing about it more and more when we close a road for a parade or for a community event. But it's certainly something, if we're going to have these events, sort of the inconvenience is going to be necessary.
Do we have it in policy that organizers of events who make these requests of us actually have some kind of mandate or direction that they must advise those who would be affected by these kinds of road closures?
It's not written policy, but certainly been our practice in the past, but something we can work on putting in writing.
Okay. Should we put it in writing if we're considering this resolution? Okay. All right. So we have that resolution. I think it's been moved and seconded, right? So do we want to make any revisions to this? Do we want to instruct that the organizer of the event contact the landowners who might be affected by this? Is that a reasonable suggestion, Councillor Roden?
Councillor Leanne brought up some good points. It will be a road that in the future for the transportation master plan, so maybe add in, start looking for new routes.
Indeed. Well, I'm not sure the council should direct that, but I hear your message. That's certainly interesting. So should we put some kind of notification qualifier in here to make this more tolerable at this point, or should I just call the vote and see where it goes? Call the vote. All right. Anyone else feel differently? All right. So this has been duly moved and seconded for this character run route. Let's have the vote. All right, that's carried 8-2. I think it does behoove us to advise the organizer that there is some concern about notification and that it would be a civil act to let them take care of that as part of that process. All right, let's move to 11.2. So we have a request to close roads there as well. This one's related to the annual Teddy Bear Play Day, which is a really good time. On June 15th, 2024, a resolution as follows: that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the request from the North Perth Programs Department to close the following roads from 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. on Saturday, June 15th, 2024, for the annual Teddy Bear Play Day event. Royal Street from Elizabeth Street East to Davidson Avenue North, and Derry Street from Maitland Avenue North to Royal Street, and that North Perth Fire, Public Works, OPP, and Perth County EMS will be advised of the event. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Blazek. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. For 11.3, we have another road closure request as follows: so that the Council of the Municipality of North Perth approves the request from Maitland Conservation to close the following roads from 11:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday, May 26, 2024 for the 2024 Perth Children's Water Festival. Royal Street from Elizabeth Street East to the Listowel Kinsman Pool, and Derry Street from Maitland Avenue North to the Listowel Kinsman Pool, and that the above road closures be approved for the same time period on the event's rain date of June 2nd, 2024, if necessary, and further that North Perth Fire, Public Works, OPP, and Perth County EMS will be advised of the event. Can I call for a mover on this one? Moved by Deputy Mayor Callum, seconded by Councillor Duncan. Any discussion or debate here? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. For 11.4, we have correspondence in the agenda package from the Listowel Agricultural Society that requests a grant or sponsorship in support of its Taste of the World in North Perth event. Is there a will of council on this matter? And we should note that Councillor Andreessen has left the room. Councillor Nordham, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I know this is a very fantastic event that the Listowel Ag Society puts on. Here they're asking for a $1,000 sponsorship for the event, and I would like to make a motion that we provide a $1,000 sponsorship.
Okay, so I'm sure the clerk is recording a motion to this effect. Let me turn, do we have a seconder? You want a motion to second that? Councillor Rothwell, okay. All right. Yeah, just give me 1 second here to catch up. Okay, comments. Let's turn to Councillor Blazek.
Just sort of for the sake of transparency, I wanted to inform council that there was a request put into the DEI committee that they consider supporting this motion or this request for sponsorship or financial aid from council, and DEI decided to decline to support that. They're very much in favor of the event, but not in favor of supporting us or council financially supporting it.
Thanks, Councillor Blazek. Councillor Duncan, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor. I just want to remind council that we've had a long-standing policy of not sponsoring events or local groups for the simple reason that we can't pick and choose between who gets money and who doesn't. And that's been the policy as long as I've sat in this chair, so I can't support this. And unfortunately, I think it's a great event, but because of our policy, I can't support that.
Thank you, Councillor Duncan. Anyone else wishing to make comment on this? Okay, so we have a resolution to the effect that council approves a $1,000 grant to the Listowel Agricultural Society in sponsorship of its Taste of the World in North Perth event. That's the resolution, something like that. We have it duly moved and seconded. Let's have the vote. And that is defeated. Thank you. We'll invite staff to indicate the result of that vote, I think, to the proponent. For item 11.5, we have a request from O'Malley Homes to waive new fees associated with the part lot control exemption that we saw earlier. It is understood that they paid with their earlier application, which expired, as you saw, and they are recommending that the council consider that the fee has already been paid without them getting the effect of paying that, and so they should get that effect now. Is there a will of council on this matter? Councillor Duncan.
I just wonder if maybe somebody from staff can comment on this for us.
Yep, sounds good. Mr. Garland is approaching the podium. Go ahead, Mr. Garland.
Thank you, Mayor Kaysenberg, members of council. So there was an original application the fee was paid for the original application. It was approved. It was for a 2-year consideration. That did since expire. So this is a new application. There is not a part of our fee schedule, or it's part of, North Perth's fee schedule for an extension. We did talk to the applicant about kind of looking at that in the future for consideration. They did want to proceed with all the applications right now. So that was discussed briefly with them, but as kind of a way to mitigate that, and then introduce a renewal fee in the future as part of a fee schedule review. But that was not considered. So right now, this is I don't know, there's a requirement still, even if a severance does lapse as well, too, for you to reapply for the full fee. So there is no kind of fee waiver consideration or mitigating amount, like a 50% reduction or anything to that effect. I don't know if I can answer any other questions from council.
Okay, colleagues, any other questions? Hold on, let's just see. A question. Yes? Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, thanks, Nathan. So my understanding is that there's a North Perth fee and a county fee on this. Is that correct? Or is this the total amount?
Through the mayor, in response to Councillor Rothwell's question, no, this is just the North Perth fee. So there is no county fee collected as part of these. As a severance would be both a county and North Perth. This is just a $700 fee per lot being created.
Further, previously, I know that the North Perth had a fee per lot and the county had a fee per lot. So I just want to be clear on that. So speaking on behalf of North Perth here, I mean, my question is further in terms of the amount of, if we're on a fee for service basis, most of the work has frankly been done on this 2 years ago. And I have no qualms in suggesting that at the minimum amount should be that the renewal cost should cover any fees North Perth has in terms of registration and staff time to put this matter forward. And frankly, I don't believe it's $700 per lot, but that's my opinion. Thank you.
All right, let me redirect to CAO Snell just to sort of test part of the assumption that you made. CAO Snell, let me have you in here.
So certainly when the request came forward, and this issue actually is fairly new to us. We never had expiring part lot controls, but it seems like all of a sudden now we're dealing with them more and more. So we have done a little bit of environmental scan. Some municipalities do have a reduced fee for expired. So it's something we could look at. As I said, I think as Planner Garland has suggested, it's probably something to look at through an overall fee review. But certainly, as a request is before council, if they would like to do a one-off, we can also do that too. But staff's suggesting going forward is we'd like to make it equal for everybody and bring it in at a time, probably January 1st of 2025 or something like that.
I find myself mildly uncomfortable for sort of charging again when most of the work I assume most of the work has been done. The full amount. It doesn't seem like it's in the interests of building homes and conveying homes. And to me, that's a concern here, right? We're essentially tacking on another price to the sale of these homes that I find myself uncomfortable with. Councillor Rothwell?
Through you, Mayor, I'm wondering if council could consider a possibility of requiring the current fee to be paid with the understanding that this fee review would happen and then a reimbursement of the difference between the fee paid and the reduced fee that could come forward. This is a hefty price to pay on a per lot basis because I am confident there's also a fee at the county level. And if we are truly, trying to deal with affordability piece, I mean, I'm certainly aware there is staff time involved here, but I don't believe it's at that $700 per lot basis. That's my opinion.
If I might, I'll just offer one thought in the concept here. That is that if we don't make a decision on this till January or February of next year, and we say that pay the whole amount and we'll try to correct with whatever the policy is at that point in time, in the interim, the proponent may have sold those homes and tacked that extra price tag on, which to me doesn't seem like it's a good idea. Just my own thought. CAO Snell.
So I think what I would suggest is that following Councillor Rothwell's line of thinking is that we could go back, do some research on how much work is involved, and then how many expired ones we've dealt with in the last little bit, and then bring back a report to council and maybe look how we can reimburse those people for the part lot control exemption bylaw. But we would do it in May, June.
That would be preferable. Well, yes, through your worship. We could do it. There hasn't been that many for the re-application, and there may be a county portion reappropriated to that. So through your worship, we can chat with county staff and see what those percentages work out to be for timing.
Okay. I think I see what you're saying. That's fine if that's our intention. Councillor Duncan?
Thanks. Through your mayor, I look at this two ways. I do agree the charging the same fee twice is probably somewhat onerous. However, when I read this, I also realize that the individual asking for the reduction didn't pay the fee to start with. He purchased the lots with the part lot control already on them. So in my thoughts, that's part of your due diligence when you're making a real estate deal, is to know that this is the situation you're in. So I'm kind of going like this with this one.
Colleagues, do we have an action that we wish to take here? Anyone want to propose something and see where it goes? Or do we just receive this for information? Councillor Rothwell?
Just a point of clarification. I understand that there's some urgency to this. I mean, when we look at the fact that there's houses already been built in here, I presume, and as I recall in the report, there's some people actually living within the buildings. Presumably, they'd like to be able to own the house they're living in sooner rather than later. I would hope that we can make a decision soon. So, I mean, I'll be blunt, I'll be bold, and I'll come up forward and suggest a reduced fee of $300 per lot. Would be a fee that we could charge, and or in half, $350, whatever the matter. I'll say $350, and that would be on this case. And if there's any other cases, we can deal with them. But in terms of Councillor Dunk's report, I think we can all understand is that people buy property on the basis of the values that are put in, and I suspect the person that sold this already put in their 11,000 and change as the additional amount. So frankly, I suspect he did pay it. Maybe not that specific amount to the municipality, but I assure you, he paid this as part of a real estate deal. I'm almost positive about it. So to require that to be paid in addition for work that was basically done, except obviously out of date, I'll just suggest that we council consider a reduced fee of $350 per lot on a renewal basis. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to try a resolution here just to see how it goes, all right? Councillor Blazek?
I hesitate to put a nominal value on that and set a precedent before there's been a fee review. I would be more inclined to support your first idea of, I believe it was your idea of having them pay in full and then having a letting them know that we would look into the fee schedule and refund as necessary, rather than deciding on a nominal value and setting the precedent for potential future fee schedules.
Okay, I'm hearing two competing approaches. What's Council's general will here? What would you like to consider? Councillor Richardson?
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Blazak that it might be more prudent to err on the side of caution and not set a precedence for this, like get the fee structure in place, that if there's an opportunity to refund the difference after the fact, I'd be willing to do that, but we don't even know what the fee could be like for what the reduction is. That maybe it won't come down that much, that possibly we owe them money to pay the difference. Paying the difference one way, it might pay it the other way too. So I think having a refund after the fact would be the way to go. Could call Councillor Duncan where it said he's already been paid for it, so I'm sure it's been buried in there somewhere. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. I think I'm hearing a little bit more inclination towards that at the table at this point. So I think the resolution looks something like this, that Council receives the correspondence from the proponent for information and directs the payment of the usual fee with a commitment to address any refunds on adoption of a more fulsome policy on this subject matter. That's kind of what I'm hearing, right? Okay. Clerks, keeping up with that one. And that leaves us open to, if we're making the refunds to the homeowners as opposed to the developer, that's a possibility in that case, right? To your point, that price tag could go up quite a bit between now and then. Anyway, given that, if that resolution seems comfortable, someone prepared to be the mover for this one?
I'm willing to move that.
Okay, so Councillor Rothwell will move that one, and seconded by, could be either of you. I'll go with Councillor Blazek this time, to that effect. Thank you. You have it generally at the clerk's table. Let me just check to see that they're comfortable nodding their heads. Okay, discussion or debate on this proposal? Councillor Rothwell.
Just speaking to the motion again, it's, I understand staff has a lot on their plate and so on, but I would hope that the fee review could be done in a relatively short period of time, hopefully before the summer, so that this matter can get before council in terms of before substantial sales happen. So hopefully the financial transactions could be relatively straightforward. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we have a resolution. It's duly moved and seconded. The clerks look like they're comfortable with it. Councillor Duncan, last comment?
I just hear the resolution.
Do you want to read that back to us, Clerk Carter?
So I have the Council of the Municipality of North Perth receives a correspondence from O'Malley Homes Waterloo Incorporated for information and directs the payment, the full payment, and further that staff be directed to complete a review of the fee structure with a commitment to refund a portion of fees based on the results of the fee review.
Close enough. You okay to close? Is that okay?
I'm okay with that.
All right. Any last comments on this one? Let's have that vote if we can. And that is carried. Thank you. Okay, let's move forward to bylaws. We have the opportunity to consider some bylaws, and I think we have 7 of them tonight. So let's have a look at the enabling resolution. This is our new process, as colleagues will recall. So I'm going to read out a resolution here, and we can decide whether we need to pull anything. In fact, maybe we should decide whether we need to pull anything before we get into the resolution, just so that we have a fine opportunity to make this flow right. Anyone wishing to pull any of the bylaws that have been proposed for us tonight for further discussion? CAO Snell.
I don't necessarily want to pull any of the bylaws. I just wanted to add some information to bylaw 12.7 because I think it's of interest to the community. We were approached by the county and Mediview Health Services to provide some office space for a mobile mental health unit that will serve here in Perth counties as well as part of Bruce. So we were able to free up a little bit of office space with 104. And so this will provide them office space. I would call it very substandard office space for a normal office because it's very small. But it suits their needs because most of the time will be spent in the field. So I just wanted to give council that information.
Okay, colleagues understand the intent there. Any other questions about any of these at this point? Okay, so let's consider the enabling resolution then as follows. Bylaw 6-2024 be read a third time, and be finally adopted, and that the following bylaws are hereby passed. 18-2024 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an agreement with His Majesty the King in right of Ontario as represented by the Solicitor General. 22-2024 being a bylaw exempt from part lot control, block 75 and 76, plan 44M 74, 44R 5892, part 17 through 34, 1010 through 1090 Hood Street, and 1015 through, it says 195, is it 1095? Twomley Street West. Yeah, there's a typo in my copy here. 23-2024 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 6-ZB-1999 as amended. 24-2024 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a lease extension agreement with His Majesty the King and Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Infrastructure. 27-2024 being a bylaw to establish a highway. And 28-2024 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of a lease agreement with Medivie Health Services, which is the paramedic team out of Perth County. Can I call for a mover? Moved by Councillor Nordham, seconded by Councillor Anstett. Any discussion or debate on this resolution? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. Thank you. That brings us to item 13 on our agenda. At this point, do any councillors wish to leave to give notice of motion? I'm not seeing any indication of same. That brings us to item 14 on our agenda. For item 14, are there any announcements that would be of benefit to our community or that reflect well on North Perth at this time? And of course, we can cite the fact that the Cyclones have won the first two games of the playoff final series. So that's very exciting, and our wishes, of course, is from council to the Cyclones to eat this up. Like, we want to win this, so please take us there. Anyone else like to make an announcement? Councillor Rothwell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Nothing as exciting as our Cyclones, but I will be attending the Ontario Good Roads Conference in a week and a half. And I don't believe there's any other member of the council here, but I will do my best to report back. There's lots of items on the agenda, as you can imagine, but I'll be taking the train down, so thank you.
Great. Glad to have that opportunity. Anyone else with an announcement to make? Councillor Andreessen.
I know that our staff are working hard on an upcoming event for North Perth, and I know it's in about a week and a half or so on April the 23rd, correct, on our appreciation evening. Just thought I'd give an extra heads up if staff want to speak to that as well, about appreciating those who serve on committees and serve us, in terms of volunteering in our organization.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Andreessen. CEO Snell, did you want to add anything to the encouragement to our community to come out and support the event and be recognized?
Certainly, it's our annual volunteer appreciation night. Certainly recognize the long-standing Citizen of the Year, Norm Sterling Award, as well as other volunteer appreciation awards that night. So certainly keep an eye out for stuff coming out on social media, but certainly welcome to attend if anybody's interested in making sure that they just RSVP us through those invitations.
Right. This event is truly a celebration of our community, and so the opportunity is extended to all those who are involved in ways that we can't even number or count to participate in this event and to have the opportunity for a little bit of socialization, and we will present the community's most distinguished awards that night for the year. So certainly we invite all who wish to attend to attend. Anyone else with announcements? All right, that brings us to agenda item 15. We have two items to be considered in a closed session meeting of council. I will now read the resolution that explains and enables our action to enter closed session as follows. The council proceeds in camera at 9:39 p.m. to address a matter pertaining to the following: a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality of local board. Sorry, there's a typo there. Regarding Plan 441, Blocks A and B, Plan 448, Part Lot 45, RP 44, R 1005, Part 1, and personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, regarding Celebrate North Perth awards. Can I call for a mover? Councillor Anstett, thank you, and Councillor Johnston is our seconder here. Any discussion or debate on this one? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that Councillor Andreessen is recording a manual vote. We have 10 accounted for. That is carried. At this time, any who have not been invited to remain in the room for the closed meeting should exit. We will close the doors. We will change the audiovisual configuration so that we may have our closed session. Hang on. It's not happening. Is it? We might need to ping Simon. Is Simon around?
Yeah, I think the whole stream's down.
Oh.
It's not saying live anymore.
Okay. Do we have a process that we're supposed to use for this? This is process is call Simon. Can we do that? Do we have his? It should be live now. He's seeing it live.
The whole stream is only 3:09, 3 hours and 9 minutes.
Which is basically where we're at, yeah, a few minutes ago. Can we advise him that we think that the stream has been cut off? It's just come up.
Just gonna check. I think it's up. Only because we got time.
Okay, we're testing to see if we are transmitting. We're good to go. All right. So let's turn to item 16 on our agenda. I can confirm that Council did discuss the matters identified in our enabling resolution for a closed session meeting of Council and did give staff direction pertaining to both the matters, the essence of which will remain confidential at this time for the reasons stipulated in our enablement of closed session. Council, as a mandated good practice, acts near the end of its meeting agenda to confirm all of its actions and business of its meeting through what is called the confirmatory bylaw. For item 17.1, I have the draft of same as follows, that bylaw 29-2024 being a bylaw to confirm generally previous actions of the Council of the Municipality of North Perth is hereby passed. Moved by Councillor Richardson, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Anstett. Any discussion or debate on this? Seeing none, let's have that vote. And that is carried. We'll ask Councillor Anstett to bring Councillor Andreessen back into the room. She did absent herself for that vote. Colleagues, we have completed the deliberation and taken action on the business that did come before us tonight. It is thus appropriate for us to consider adjournment. I have a resolution to that effect as follows. The council meeting adjourns at 10:12 p.m. to meet again for general council business on Monday, April 15th, 2024 at 7 p.m. That's next week. Colleagues, moved by Councillor Rothwell, seconded by Councillor Richardson. Not debatable. Let's have a vote. Councillor Anstett records a manual in favor vote. And we have 9 votes in favor, which means that we have that motion carried. This council meeting is adjourned until next Monday, April 15th.